Hello and welcome to another virtual program with the Paul Sawyer Public Library. In the last few months, actually, how long have we been doing this, Nor?
It's been a year. It's been almost
at least a year now. We've been partnering with the Frankfort Audubon Society to put on this great virtual bird identification series. And tonight will be another in that series. Tonight we're talking about warbler identification. And we're so grateful to the wonderful folks at the Frankfort Audubon Society for partnering with us on this and sharing their knowledge, especially Ms. Nora Salam, who will be presenting tonight. And Lisa Gabbard will also be her assistant. So she'll be handling the chat and taking care of all your questions, which we will have interactive aspects throughout the program, but then we'll have a full Q&A at the end as well. So without further ado, if you have not muted, if you'll do that for us, I'm going to turn it over to Nora. Nora?
Thank you, Diane. I'm so happy to be here again and welcome everyone. So based on popular demand, we put out a poll to see what people want to learn these days. And based on popular demand, this was the topic that people picked, warblers. So I'm very excited. This is the perfect timing to learn about warblers since Saturday is World Migratory Day. And I'm very pleased with migration so far. So if you're here and you've already started noticing warblers in the forests around you, and you want to get better at identifying them, or maybe you're here because you want to know what kind of warblers go through Kentucky, or you might be getting a good grip on identifying warblers, but you want to get better at finding them and listening for their songs and identifying their songs. So no matter what category you're in the right place, and you're in for a treat because we have a lot of colorful birds that come through Kentucky. A little bit of housekeeping, just a reminder, if you've been here before, you know the drill, but we want to hear from you. We want you to ask questions. And so to do that, look at the chat button at the bottom and look at this right window in your screen to chat, ask questions, or answer some quizzes. So let's warble. What are warblers? First of all, they are migratory songbirds. And so the only time you'll see them in local parks near you is during the spring. They will migrate from the Central and South America to Northeastern America to breed. And then when they're done with that, they will come back down southwards in the fall. So there's two different opportunities to see warblers, but if you're starting to learn warblers, definitely focus on the spring because they're much more colorful and easier to identify by sight and sound. Another thing that we're going to do today is that we're going to focus on males. There's male and female warblers have different color patterns. Males are much more colorful than females, so that makes females a little harder to identify, but that's okay because you got to start somewhere, and then once you get a handle on the males, you'll get better at identifying females. So, how do you find warblers? First of all, spotting is really important. To spot a bird or a warbler, it's really important to remember to, and this sounds, like I'm explaining the obvious, but look with your naked eyes first, and then without moving your head or your eye line or your sight of vision, just hold up your binoculars without kind of changing where you were looking. And that kind of helps you get through the most challenging part of finding birds, is to find them through the binoculars. So look up, find the bird, and then without losing it, just hold your binoculars up straight in the same spot. This is much easier than holding your binoculars up first and trying to find the bird that you just saw earlier by moving around. And of course, like I was just saying earlier, warblers will be in your local parks. They will not come to your feeder, and that's because they eat insects. Most of them eat insects and not seeds. So you have to get out there and try to find some warblers. The other really good tip about finding warblers is to listen. And when I say listen, try to, if you're just now beginning to learn bird songs, try to listen for the patterns. So is the bird singing 2 syllables and repeating them? Is it 3 syllables and repeating them? Is it only maybe just 1 syllable? That's for the pattern. Just try to think of what kind of song structure you're listening to, because even if you can't figure it out right there and then, you might be able to figure it out later. And then listen for the quality. Some warblers will have buzzy songs. They sound like insects, but they're not. And some other warblers will have very sweet songs, very whistly and very sweet songs. So that just these 2 aspects already get you very far in bird song ID. And it's really important to pay attention to songs with warblers because they're hiding in the trees. Sometimes they're really high up there. And so listening is a very good clue to where the warblers are or what they might be. Another good tip for warblers is to think outside of the box for a little bit. It's easy to get really focused on a bird flying around between the leaves, being very shy and not presenting itself to you to get a good look. So sometimes you might have to do some sort of elimination process based on where you are. Are you in a big open field, or are you in a very dense forest? Because that definitely, if you're in open field, that definitely narrows down the list by a lot. And the other thing is, as you can see here, we have the canopy, which is the very top of the forest, and some birds very much like to move around in that area, while other birds typically will be found in the ground layer or understory, which is between the forest floor and that little shrubby tree that you see here. So there's definitely preferences that birds have. And once I'm going to talk about those today, and I'm going to talk about those for the common warblers that you might see in Kentucky. Now, once you've thought about what kind of sounds the bird is making, where am I, what part of the forest this bird is in, then we can start talking about bird ID tips. So obviously this is not a warbler that you're seeing in front of you, but this is a white-throated sparrow, and I picked it because it has a lot of the key bird ID patterns. So when we're looking at a warbler, the first really important thing to pay attention to is color. What color is the throat? So here we have a white throat. Does this bird have wing bars? And wing bars are these 2, here in this bird, there are 2 lines crossing the wings horizontally. Another important question to ask yourself, does this bird have an eye line? Is there a line going horizontally and crossing the eye? Sometimes the eye will be surrounded by a different color, which is called an eye ring. And then lastly, and this is very important, we're going to talk about it in the next slide, the rump. So the rump is the what you could qualify as the lower back area. And in this bird, it's pretty much the same color as the rest of its body. It's brown, but in a lot of birds, it can be a very brightly colored area. So remember the rump. let's start talking about common warblers that you'll find low to the ground. So, we're gonna start from easy to difficult because these birds are a lot easier to see than the birds that are high in the canopy. Palm warblers are very colorful birds. They have a yellow throat, yellow breast, yellow underside, and a yellow rump. So you can notice this yellow underside, and they also have on the back of their tails a yellow area. These birds are some of the easiest to see because they feed on the ground. And so when you're looking for them, look to the ground. Maybe you'll see a couple of sparrows and a couple of birds walking around, and sometimes they might be a palm warbler mixed in there. And it's very distinctly noticeable by its brown cap that it's wearing and its really cool yellow underside. We're not going to talk about this song because it's very easy to confuse with other songs. So we're going to talk about some easy songs that you can remember. And that have a very distinct pattern and unique pattern compared to other warblers. This one is the ovenbird. And for those of you who are familiar with thrushes, you might think that very much looks like a thrush. Well, it does have the patterns of a thrush, and that is this very white belly with little streaks, sometimes brown. And there's this is what the thrushes don't have, is they don't have these two black lines on the head. And their shape is also, the thrushes are bigger than ovenbirds and are much more plump. So this very interesting bird here does a song pattern that's composed of 2 syllables, and that's illustrated by teacher, teacher, teacher. This song is very interesting because it starts off kind of mild and it becomes very, very loud towards the end. And we're going to listen to it together right here. Let's listen to the ovenbird. So 2 things to remember here. This very unique song has 2 syllables that are repeating very quickly, and it unmistakably rises in volume towards the end. And it's very beautiful. So this next one is the Kentucky warbler, a very beautiful yellow warbler named after our state. And here you can notice that there's a very bright yellow belly and throat, and the back is kind of greenish or olive. And the head has a very beautiful marking where there's a black cap, and this is not called an eye line, but because it doesn't exactly form a line that goes through the eye, but there's a kind of black marking under the eye that's very distinct for this warbler. This warbler also makes 2 syllables, but it's a much sweeter song. It doesn't rise in volume. It's just kind of slower as well. Let's listen to that one together to compare. So that was the Kentucky warbler, 2 syllables, just like the ovenbird, but the ovenbird clearly says, teacher, teacher, teacher. And this one is just more like a slurry of 2 syllables repeated right after one another. Both the Kentucky warbler and the palm warbler and the ovenbird, all 3 of those can be found very close to the ground. The next one we're going to talk about is the common yellowthroat. Now, this one can be in some very small trees. It's not going to be high up, but it's still very easy to see. And it's called the common yellowthroat. And it has a very, very nice mask, just like Zorro. And hopefully that's unforgettable for you, is this black mask that it's wearing. And contrasting with that, it has a very bright yellow belly and kind of a brownish looking back and tail. This one, now notice that it says 3 different syllables, not just 2. So the song is illustrated by witchity, witchity, witchity. And it's a very interesting comparison, thinking about these mnemonics and what they actually sound like, but it has been really helpful for me learning warbler songs, and I hope it's helpful for you as well. So let's listen to the common yellowthroat and pay attention to the 3 syllables. And next we have the yellow-rumped warbler. So we're talking about the rump again, and as you can see, this warbler has a very distinct, bright red yellow rump. It also has yellow sides. So as you can see here by these little spots, and the rest of the bird is black and gray, and it has a white throat that contracts with all that black and gray. This bird here, interestingly, is, while it is a warbler, you can actually find it here in the winter. It's one of the only warblers that you can find in Kentucky during the winter. So that one is pretty easy to see, and it's really common as well. This next one, the yellow warbler, has a really easy song to remember. As the name says it all, this is a completely yellow warbler. There are no eye lines, the rump is yellow, everything is yellow. The only thing that's not yellow about it, for males, which we're looking at a male here, there are some very fine brown streaks on the breast. It kind of looks like little tiger markings. So this one has a very sweet song, and it sounds like it's composed of 2 different paragraphs. One that says 1 syllable very quickly, and then the other paragraph says 3 syllables very quickly. And it's illustrated by this sweet, 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 I'm so sweet. So listen to the 2 different parts and how there's a shift between the different songs. So as you can hear, this bird is very sweet, and it's definitely gonna keep reminding you of that. And again, the takeaway message here is that this is a very sweet whistly note, but at the very end, there's 3 very fast notes that are kind of characterized by this I'm so sweet that's repeating. This Prothonotary warbler has a very different color pattern. Its head is yellow, its belly is yellow, but compared to the yellow warbler, it has blue-gray wings and a blue-gray tail as well. And in contrast with the yellow warbler, this one has the same whistly notes repeated. There's nothing distinct about the ending. So it's the same one syllable whistle that's repeating the whole way. And we're going to listen to that right about now. So all this bird is saying is sweet, sweet, sweet. There's no emphasizing on how sweet it is like the yellow warbler. So keep that in mind. And then we have the beautiful black and white warbler. This is one of the very few warblers that doesn't have, it's black and white. It doesn't have any other colors. And you can find this bird on tree barks or tree branches. And unlike other birds, it'll often, instead of flying from one place to another, it'll just walk, and it will walk the trees up and down, sideways. It'll just move very quickly and walk kind of like a nuthatch. And this bird has a very sweet whistly song as well, but at this point, it is very, very similar to a lot of other warblers. And this bird is much more easier to ID by just finding that little flash of black and white going up a tree or down a tree. It does, however, sound like a squeaky wheel. And now we have the prairie warbler. So as the name indicates, this bird does like open habitats, and it's very difficult to see at times, but it's very, very loud and very easy to hear. And unlike the Prothonotary warbler and the yellow warbler that had very sweet whistly songs, this bird has a very buzzy song. And it sounds like it's saying a series of Z notes, and those are repeated very fast. Let's see what that sounds like. So notice two things before I play it again. There's a buzzy sound that's repeated very quickly. And notice another thing, this song is rising in pitch as the bird sings. Okay, so this was the prairie warbler, and we're gonna see how challenging these warblers are, and we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We're gonna try a different type of quiz. So let me get that set up. All right, so if you've used this before, you know the drill, but if you haven't never used this before, you can, on your phone or your laptop, go to www.menti.com and then enter this code. And as soon as you enter your answers, we'll be able to see them over here. And I'm gonna first play the sound of the bird that we're trying to guess. And we just, obviously we just went over it just earlier. And I'm gonna give you a couple more minutes here to get set up before I play the sound. Okay, so menti.com, and then the code is 73683682. All right. So if you didn't get the chance to set this up or didn't have enough time, feel free to use the chat on Zoom. That's okay too. So all right, I'm gonna play the sound of the bird, and I'm also gonna show you its picture in a few minutes, which is very similar to what happens when you're out bird watching. You'll hear something, it'll show up. So this is kind of the same chronological progression, and it'll help you get better at ID in the field. Okay, here we go. Someone already guessed. Nice try, but it's not that one. All right. Ooh. Yellow boy. Yeah, that's pretty much, I think people are on the right track. So very good. So someone maybe didn't remember the name of the bird, but identified the sweet notes that it's making. So sweet, sweet, sweet. So this bird is making the sound sweet, sweet, sweet. I'm so sweet. And you might recall that it might look like something like this. And now you have a pretty good indication of what this bird might be called, because it's called exactly what it looks like. It's a completely yellow bird, and it's the yellow warbler. So really good job on those guesses. And again, if you can't guess the bird from its sound, just try to remember the pattern and the type of quality of sound it's making. All right, next we have another quiz. Let me see here. Okay, got it. All right, so get ready for the next one. And here we go. Listen to the quality and the number of syllables. Is it a sweet or a buzzy song? All right, let me play it one last time. Are we getting anything on the Zoom chat, Lisa?
No, people are either shy or maybe still trying to get into the Minty.
Okay,
Nothing in the chat at the moment.
good, good. So this is a buzzy song. It has one syllable that's repeating within and it's ascending in pitch as well. I'm gonna give you a clue on what this bird looks like so you can keep guessing. So do you remember this bird right here? Let's see. I'm gonna show it for a couple more seconds while you guess on Menti. Nice, okay. We got 2 out of 3 correct answers. It is the prairie warbler. And the Kentucky warbler has a 2-syllable song, but it's not as buzzy as the prairie warbler, but good job on those guesses. Again, the warblers are very challenging and I'm still learning them myself. So you just have to be patient and try to get out there as much as possible. Next, we have the warblers that are very difficult to see and are much easier to hear. So these are the forest canopy warblers. So they're going to be very, very high up. They will probably give you something called warbler neck, which is caused by just looking up for extended periods of time, unlike these birds we just saw. And the first one on this list that has definitely given me warbler neck is the northern parula. It's a very, very beautiful bird. It has a broken eye-ring. You see that white on the top and the bottom. It has a yellow throat. It has a yellow breast, and the rest of its underside is white. And compare that with the back. It's a grayish bird with some yellow hints on the back as well. And I put this right after the prairie warbler because it's really interesting to compare. And we're going to listen to the song here in a minute. The prairie warbler has a buzzy song and it rises in pitch, right? This one does too, except that it kind of does it in one go instead of doing very quick notes that rise in pitch. So the prairie warbler is a little broken up and going up, and this one is, no, I'm just going to do it in one go, do my buzzy little song and rise in pitch in just one go. So let's listen to that right now. So notice there's no stops between the notes. It's just ascending in one buzzy song. Let's listen to it one more time. Now here, I'm going to play the prairie warbler here just to compare. That was singular notes rising in pitch. And now back to our presentation, we have another really nice bird to ID, the black-throated green warbler. I love it when their names are very descriptive. And as you can see, there's a very, very cute black throat. The belly is mostly white. Notice that this bird has 2 wing bars, if you can see them here in white. And the back is indeed somewhat green. It's kind of more olive colored, and its face is yellow. And it has a very, very nice faint black eye line. So remember all these terms we were learning? You can definitely use them with the black-throated green warbler. This bird has a buzzy song as well. And instead of singing sweet notes, it sounds like it's saying Z notes. And we're going to listen to this song together. It sounds like it's saying Z, Z, zo, zo, Z. And let's do black-throated green warbler. So there's 2 important things to remember. It starts with some Z notes, and then the last 2 notes kind of get are different from the beginning. So there's very, very distinct Z notes, and then the last 2 notes are zo Z. And so that's kind of how these 2 paragraphs come about. There's a beginning paragraph and then an ending, and you can remember that with the ZZ zo zo Z words. And then the next one we have is the Cerulean warbler. This one also loves to hang out very high in the tree canopy. And it's a very nice blue tint on the back, on the wings, on the sides, and on the head. And then the underside is white. And it's a very, very beautiful bird to see. And then last but not least, we have the pine warbler. Now, as the name says, this is one that loves to hang out in pine trees. And it has 2 wing bars that you can see right here. And mostly yellow head, yellow breast, yellow throat, and then a white, kind of white underside and some white sides also. And so again, if you're seeing, a flash of yellow and you're in a very nice pine tree, you can maybe start to think about what are your options there. You can hold up your binoculars. If you see 2 wing bars and you're in a pine tree stand, and there's some a yellow head, a yellow breast, you've narrowed down the options a lot to pine warbler. And then we have, this is actually the last one. It's the yellow-throated warbler. This bird, you can easily hear or see this bird if you go to a river bank. Just sit down next to the river, and it will probably be singing next to the river, very high in the tree canopy. It has as the name indicates, is a very helpful name. It has a yellow throat, and there's no other yellow parts on this bird. The belly is white. It has some black and white markings on the face, and then the back of the yellow-throated warbler is mostly gray. So very striking yellow throat, and it has a very, very distinct descending song. And so this song is some very, very short, sweet notes that are followed by some that are this descending in pitch. So here we go. I'm going to play the yellow-throated warbler. So it sounds like the sound of something falling down and we're using very sweet notes. Listen to it one last time. And that was the yellow-throated warbler. And we're gonna do some quizzes now about these higher canopy warblers and see how we did there. So because I'm using the free version of Mentimeter, we're gonna use the Zoom chat this time. So get ready in your Zoom chat box. Let's try listening to this one. And I'm gonna play the song and then show you the bird. So you can guess either way, and we'll give you some time to do that. So what is this bird?
Wow, people got that one quickly, Nor.
Nice. Okay, so we have a buzzy song. It's rising in pitch in one go, no stops there. So if you haven't guessed it already, this is what the bird looks like. And I'm gonna do the big reveal here. It's the northern parula. Again, a bird that'll be it'll be much easier to find if you just listen for it and try to get close to that tree without giving yourself too much neck pain. All right, and then last quiz here. Get ready. You wanna end on a high note for sure. So let's listen to this one. Lisa, should I reveal the
There's multiple
picture?
guesses, but sure, go ahead and show the picture. No.
So we have a buzzy song. It has a first and second paragraph. And I'm sure you've guessed it by now. Just look at the throat, look at the back. We have the black-throated green warbler. How did we do this time, Lisa?
You know, about 8 or 10 people guessed and most people got it right. So that's proves that you're a good teacher.
Okay. I'm happy that people are getting something out of this. And I would like to definitely hear questions and your comments, but I will end this presentation with some information about the Frankfort Audubon Society. We are now starting, just as of recently, to offer private bird walks for members. And this is important because a lot of times, people will go on a group walk and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people, and it is sometimes a lot of pressure to try to learn a lot of birds in that setting. So I wanted to just bring it to your attention that if you join Frankfort Audubon Society as a member, you get one annual private bird walk for you and one immediate family member. And this contribution will help contribute to conservation and education for your local community. So check this out on the Frankfort Audubon Society website. And yes?
Sorry, I just wanted to throw out, I think we mentioned at our last board meeting that if someone is not capable or doesn't want to walk, we can also do a bird sit. And there are some places that are presently accessible. And I know the Josephine Sculpture Park here in Franklin County is working on becoming more accessible with a bird viewing station that'll be accessible to someone in a wheelchair. So it doesn't have to be a bird walk if walking's not your thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for the reminder. So it's a bird walk, bird sit, and that's for the private, if you are interested in learning more in a private setting, you can do that. But all of our events are open to everyone from the public. We actually have one this Saturday at Buffalo Trace. So check out our Facebook page if you want to join that in Frankfort. There's a lot of other events also going on this Saturday since it's World Migratory Bird Day. So check out your local Audubon Society. And I want to again thank the Paul Sawyer Public Library for hosting us and for your participation, because I knew warblers were challenging and I know it was a high demand topic. So I'm very, very happy that you got to participate and learn and see a lot of colors. I hope you see colors in your backyard or maybe in your local park. And yeah, I'll take any questions if you have any.
Before, there are a couple questions which I'll get to, but I did want to mention a couple comments that people made I found helpful. Ronan commented that the ovenbird walks like a chicken, and I must admit I didn't know that, Ronan, so I snuck onto YouTube, and sure, it does kind of pushes its head forward and walks like a chicken. So that was kind of funny.
Very cool.
He pointed out as well that the Prothonotary warbler is the only cavity nesting warbler east of the Mississippi. And we were talking about bird walks and whatnot. If you have ever had an opportunity to go down to the wetland side of Cove Spring Park here in Frankfort, you may see Prothonotary warbler nests that our Audubon chapter erected a few years ago. They're just look like pieces of pipe or tubing up on a pipe. And they have been used for several years. And so we're excited about that. Let's see, there were
Thank
a
you,
couple other.
Ronan, for those
Yeah,
really helpful tips.
he's
Yeah.
a font of knowledge, and he also mentioned that the Merlin free app that you can use on your phone is really helpful for identifying
Mhm.
birds, both just if you type in the colors, it'll come up with some suggestions for you. If you have a picture, it'll identify a picture, and you can also turn on a little part of it that will do a recording and tell you what birds are singing. So that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. So
Mhm.
anyway, we can tell you more about that, or if you want at a later point, because I want to get to these questions. Dawn asks a really good question. What is your favorite warbler and why?
It definitely has to be, well, that's, you can't ask someone like me that question because I probably have too many, but I think the Kentucky Warbler is my favorite. You can tell because I picked it for the event cover, but it's also because I saw this warbler as I was trying to decide to move to Kentucky. And so I was in a different state and I saw this warbler and I remember, thinking like, whoa, what a coincidence. And here I am 3 years later in Kentucky and really enjoying it. So I don't know, just a fun memory.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're beautiful. I love
They're
that.
beautiful. Yeah.
We're glad you moved to Kentucky. Bye, Prentice. Thanks for being here. Christy asks, what's the difference between an eye line and an eye stripe? And is the eye line just black? Is that the difference? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't think it's the color. I think it can be any color. It doesn't matter, but I'm actually not sure on the answer. Hopefully Ronan can jump in, but I think one of those goes through the eye or above the eye. And so I think the eye line goes through the eye. It's Ronan, check me on this. The eye line goes through the eye. Eye stripe, I think, is maybe sometimes above, or maybe is not a complete line. So I'm not sure entirely, but that's a really good question.
Ronan says that people have a number of names for the same thing. So it could be that it's just the same thing and people call it different
It's probably the same
things.
Yeah. But that question brings up a good point, which is, I presented a lot of common warblers and there's some other warblers that are very, very similar looking. And it does matter sometimes, besides looking at the throat, the rump, the wings, the eye line sometimes either is complete, from start to finish, or it's sometimes just half of an eye line. That matters too sometimes, but it is very challenging to see, unless you're up close.
Very true. And, we said people have different names for the same thing. Most birds, as you all probably know, have colloquial names or nicknames. Speaking of, we were talking about the rump. Some folks call the yellow rump warbler a butterbutt. So there's a word butt instead of rump, and then a nickname for that particular bird. So, we have
yeah,
all
that is
sorts
a very,
of
very cute nickname.
I know, it's funny. Donna
and I
asked,
also have heard Prothonotaries. I've also heard the word swamp warblers because they love living in swamps. So like Lisa said, Cove Springs wetlands is a great place to see them because of the wet areas and marshes. What was Donna asking?
Oh, Donna, just which ones breed here in Kentucky? And to my knowledge, it's only the yellow rump, but I may be wrong.
I think that there's a lot of, I don't know the exact number, but there's many in my presentation that breed in Kentucky. For example, the Kentucky warbler breeds in Kentucky. I can't think of if the other ones do or don't, but I just have recently looked up the Kentucky warbler because we were trying to decide, would it be a good state bird? And one of the good questions to ask for, is it a good state bird, is does it breed in the state? And Kentucky warbler does, in fact. So it would be a great candidate to be, not saying anything bad about cardinals, love cardinals, but a unique state bird would be pretty fun. I don't remember if the other birds breed in Kentucky, but
Ronan threw out a couple.
And if you go on the, we mentioned the Merlin bird app. This is a wealth of resources and information, but you can also basically look up any one of these birds on the either the Audubon Society website or on the Cornell Lab of Ornithology website, and it will show you a map of where it breeds, where it goes for the winter, where it migrates. Some birds you can only see right now. They don't breed or overwinter here. So this is the time to, catch them while they're in migration and see them in their beautiful colors.
So Ronan pointed out several, and I would like to say first, the Kentucky, which you mentioned, but the Prothonotary, I literally just told you all that they had nesting boxes
Yes,
at the park.
Prothonotary, yeah.
So obviously they nest here.
Yeah. I
Um,
blanked too.
yeah, right. I guess I was thinking of overwinter, which is the yellow rump. But ovenbird, black-throated green, yellow-throated warbler, cerulean. So really the ones you focused on, Nora, were pretty much sounds like the ones that will nest here, which makes sense, is why they're more commonly seen here, because they're here for a longer period of time than the ones that just migrate through. And I have to throw this in. Linda put in a cute joke. What bird can't walk in a straight line? A warbler. She said it was a dad joke. So I like it.
That's pretty good.
Oh, do northern parulas nest here too? Good question, because I feel like I hear them. Yes, Ronan says, yeah, I was gonna say, I felt like I hear them in the summer when I'm out and about. I thought they would stay. And just another tidbit, some people call them a parula. So if you hear someone say parula, parula, same thing.
Yeah,
So-
and these birds are, one of the other reasons why they're really hard to see is not only they're very high in the canopy, but they also love nesting in Spanish moss. So, those nice little, very long mosses that hang from trees, and they'll kind of go in those areas, which again makes them very well hidden.
Yeah,
And even harder to see.
definitely.
Yeah.
Do we have that in Kentucky? Maybe in Western Kentucky where it's a little more swampy? I don't know if we have much of it around here.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of Mississippi, but
We
yeah,
probably
what
have
do
some.
they? I wonder what they nest in Kentucky.
It's a good
This is a
question.
good conversation. Yeah.
I know, I love these because it always makes us think of more
Makes me
things we
think.
want to know.
Yeah, and I'm still learning, and the more every spring migration, I learn a few more birds, and it's good to get out with a group. You'll learn some new bird songs, you'll learn some new bird ID tips, and it feels like every time I meet a new birder or go out with a group, I have to learn something new. It's just bound to happen.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, Linda says the app looks awesome. The Merlin app is really helpful. I think you'll love it, Linda.
Yeah.
And then the sounds help too, Stacy. Yes, I've been
Yes.
using those.
And
then-
definitely it since it is an app and it uses an algorithm to compare what it's listening to what it has in its database. It's not always 100% correct. It has a pretty high level of accuracy. So I always encourage people to use the app, but also see what it shows you and then compare that with what you actually are listening to. And you can, when you use the app, you can click on the birds that show up while you're recording and see what they sound like. Now, having said that, make sure that you're not playing songs while bird watching, because while you may think that's really cool and it attracts the birds, it's actually very detrimental to those birds who are trying to breed and attract mates, and they're also defending territories. So you're just throwing in a lot of confusion, and they have a very limited amount of energy they can spend on things and very limited food resources. So when they do chase a new sound that you just played, they're just wasting energy. And it's really tough out there for warblers. So we want to make sure that we're giving them the best chance we can. So make sure that if you are verifying something you just heard, just put the phone up to your ear and see if that's what you heard in real life.
When you talk about it being tough for them, Scott asked if warbler populations are stable, and then Ronan pointed out, and this is true, and I know we've talked about it on other presentations, that all bird populations are in decline for multiple reasons. Habitat loss, cats, different reasons. So
Yeah.
thank you, Scott, for the question, and Ronan for the answer. And then Stacy reminds folks who maybe didn't know, or I had forgotten that allaboutbirds.org is also a good site. So
Mhm.
Merlin's a good app to have with you on your phone. I use All About Birds more on my laptop, but
For
they're
sure,
both
for sure.
they're both
Yeah,
good.
and this is very true. All birds are in decline, some more than others, and that's because they either specialize in a very specific kind of food or they specialize in a very specific kind of habitat. So when I was researching for this presentation, I learned that, for example, common yellowthroats are very much somewhat habitat generalists. They don't rely on a very specific type of habitat. While as opposed to that, cerulean warblers, they have a very specific habitat requirement, which is, mature forests, high canopy tops, and that's what makes some warblers that are very dependent on something super specific maybe be more at risk than others if that habitat they depend on is being removed.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, great question.
Is there a better time of day to go and look or listen for warblers?
Yes, absolutely. Early in the morning is best to listen to the songs. Definitely, for many reasons, going around noon will be probably very much the low end on that spectrum to see or hear any birds, because it's really hot. They don't want to spend that energy singing in the heat. They probably want to conserve that energy. So morning hours are they're much cooler, and that's when most warblers sing. So yeah, definitely waking up in the morning is a must. I think very few, but you can sometimes hear some at dusk. I don't think it applies to all warblers, but definitely some other birds do that at dusk when it cools down again. But most warblers are good in the morning.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Good question. Then Ronan points out migrants generally come in overnight, and therefore they're going to be feeding early in the morning, and that's the easiest time to see them before the heat of the day comes on. So yeah, another good reason to get out early.
And I mean, this is very cool if you're a night owl. Ronan and I were talking about this the other day. Warblers will migrate at night. And they'll move from one area to another, and they'll move in very large flocks. So if you're up late, in this time of the year, you can sometimes go outside and you'll probably hear large flocks of warblers moving through. It's really hard to tell what they are because they do different sounds from the ones I just showed you. Of course, they don't make it easy. They have a lot of variation, but I've never gotten to witness this yet. I'm definitely not a night owl. I'm a morning, an early bird person, but yeah, it's fascinating if you go outside at night, kind of like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., that kind of thing, and listen to migratory birds going through.
Ronan
Make a lot of cool
mentions
sounds.
3 to 4 a.m. So yeah,
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Yeah, not my time of day either.
No. One day I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Thank you, Ronan.
Yeah.
I'm so glad he's here.
Yeah, great input and great questions from people. Oh, and yet you're still awake. He says, I've been doing it for the last few nights. Impressive. I'm usually asleep by 11. So. Any other questions, you all? This is the time for them.
Well, definitely check out our Facebook page to see more events like this, whether it's virtual presentations or bird walks, and stay tuned.
Yeah. Thanks again for being here. Ronan's about to drop off, he says. So appreciate everybody's input. Thanks, Nor, and thanks, Diane and the Paul Sawyer Public Library.
Diane. Yeah, there we go.
I was muted. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, Nor, for another wonderful presentation. And Lisa, you're also a wealth of knowledge. We appreciate everyone who's participated. I love it when I see everyone just getting really engaged and sharing their knowledge and asking questions. It's really fantastic. So thanks on behalf of the library for coming out tonight. And hopefully we can get back together soon and do another. So keep your eye out for that. We have lots of great programming coming up for summer at the Paul Sawyer Public Library for all ages, mostly in person, but there are a few virtual options. So definitely check that out in the coming weeks. But yeah, so thanks again to the Frankfort Audubon Society, and we hope that we see you all very soon. Have a great night.